Shalom and welcome to Yeshiva B'nai Noach as we continue with the beginning biblical Hebrew course. Now moving to chapter 20, the infinitive and verb chapter, and we'll be doing the review for this chapter. Starting with the oral review on page 208, number 1. Omor lachameshet ha-banim et kol ha-Torah. Say all the law to the 5 sons. So you just have to pick up this in here. Now, if you translated it directly, how would it sound? It would be, say to the 5 sons all the law. That sounds fine also. Number 2, or second part. Al tomar lish losha ha-goyim ha-ra'im davar tov echad. So, al tomar, do not say one good word to the 3 sons, or to the 3 evil nations. Sorry, to the 3 evil nations. Again, directly translating it would be, do not say to the 3 evil nations one good word. Next, amarta la aseret sarei ha-milchama tenu lanu shalom. So you said to the 10 chiefs or commanders of the war, give to us, or give us shalom, give us peace. Second section of the oral review. Halachtem el shetei he'arim hagdolot ach yishavtem ba'ir kitana achat. So you went to the 2 large cities, but you settled in 1 small city. Second one. Lechu el tesha aratzot ach al teshvu sham. So go to the 9, or not the, just go to 9 countries, but do not live there. Al telchu el arbaat hamatot bamakom hahu. So do not go to the 4 tribes in that place, makom. Number 3, oral review, page 208. Kach shisha asar kli zahav el ha-kohen ha-gadol b'kodesh ha-kodeshim. Take 16 shisha aser, 10 and 6, 16 vessels or instruments of gold to the great priest in the Holy of Holies. Al tikach shesh esrei nefashot imcha ha-midbara. Do not take 16 people or souls with you to or toward the desert. Lekachta esrim elef behema el sadeh avicha. You took 20,000 animals to the fields of your father. Okay? And animals as cattle might make even more sense since this is not plural here. Number 4. Shimu et hakol me alfei ish. Hear the sounds or the voices, or the voice, it's actually singular, but combined with what follows it, you can assume it as a plural. You're hearing the voice, but you're hearing all the voices from 1,000 men. Second one. Shematem et kol arba'at haruchot ba'layla. Haruchot ba'layla. You heard the sound of the 4 wind spirits, probably here, the 4 spirits in the night. Shema et kol demei achicha min ha'adama. Hear the sound of the blood of your brother from the ground. Think of the Cain and Abel story. A little less grisly to imagine that, I suppose. Number 5. Ale l'Yerushalayim im shiba ish ushmonei nashim. So go up to Jerusalem with 7 men and 8 women. Next, al ta'ale the machanot Israel im sheva cherev biyadecha. Do not go up to the camps of Israel with 7 sword, so you're going to make that plural, swords, but literally it's not here, in your hand. Next, alita la'achei Yaakov im shemone tzon kimincha. You went up to the brothers of Jacob, the brothers of Jacob, with 8 flocks as a gift. Number 6. Aseh mizbeach mishesh avanim b'makom hazeh. Make an altar from 6 stones in this place. Second, al ta'aseh ma'aseh ra le'isha bat me'ah shana. Do not do or do not make, do not do an evil deed to a woman 100 years old. And remember, bat is just When you're talking about an age, often that's just added to indicate that what follows is an age. And last on the oral review, number 7, Ra'e et Shloshet Malachei HaMelech Lifnei Kiso. See the 3 messengers of the king before or in front of his throne. Ra'u et artzenu v'elef et ba. See our land and 1,000 trees on it. Ra'inu shiva'a asar batim ketanim bagvul saviv. So we saw 17 small houses on the border roundabout, or around here. Okay, so let's begin our review, first of all, with the vocabulary for Chapter 20. We have O, or, Chayil, strength, power, army, masculine, or Chayil, strength of, power of, army of, the word pair form. Yachal, to be able. Yalad, to give birth or beget. Yitzchak, Isaac. Yerash, inherit, take possession of. Na, please, when you're trying to be polite. Naum, speech or declaration. Naum, spelled the same way in a word pair form for speech of, declaration of, again, masculine form. Nachala is feminine, property or inheritance. Nachala, or nachalat in the word pair form. Tzava, army, military force, masculine, or tzavaot in the plural. Armies, military forces. Note that it is irregular. This is a masculine, even though it has a feminine ending in the plural. And tzava for the word pair form singular. Rak, only, or shachav, to lie down. That is our vocabulary. I'm not sure of any, trying to think of chayil, ways to remember. Chay, of course, life, gives lens to the strength idea, the strength and power. And then, Yeled. I don't think we've had the word for boy or girl. Yeled is in a noun form would be for boy. So that in the verb form, then it just gives the idea of giving birth to a boy or a girl, but give birth or beget. Isaac, Yerash, don't be in a rush to take possession of or inherit things, I guess. And if you have other ideas, please post them so that everyone can benefit from seeing how your ideas come across. So speech declaration, na'um, not really don't have anything there. Nachala, I just noticed chala being bread, again having to do with property or inheritance. But nachala. And Tziva, the Lord of Hosts, Adonai Tzavaot. If you're familiar with that phrase, that might help you remember the idea of an army. So this can also be translated as a host. But Adonai Tzavaot, the Lord of Hosts. But Tzava and Tzavaot would be an army, a military force, or again, a host of something. Rach Oned, no way for that necessarily that I have. Shachav, again for me, I thought of when you see the shock of something, you may have to lie down, if that helps you. Shakav. Okay, so that's our vocabulary. So some vocabulary notes. The word chayil is usually a collective noun, so the idea of an army, military force. You're dealing with more than one, or a collection of more than one. The verb is yachal, very irregular, and we'll look at that later. Yaled, drop letter in the imperfect tense. So, and again, remember that any of the Yona letters, Yud being one of them, can and often will drop out. So you'll see two letters, the Lamed and the Dalet, in many cases in the imperfect tense. And they'll look at that. The word Na'um and the plural of Tzava are often used with the name of God. We talked about Adonai Tzavaot. And you'll find examples of Na'um and Tzavaot used with the name of God on page 222, so you can see that. And here's Na'um Hashem, the declaration of God, or saith the Lord, and Adonai Tzavaot, which we talked about, is the Lord of hosts. So in this chapter, we're taking a look at the infinitive form, excuse me, of the verb. In both Hebrew and English, infinitive form is infinite in the sense of having no limits with regard to person, gender, number, or tense. It doesn't need to agree with any other word in the sentence. In English, the infinitive is is formed by placing the word to. So to guard, to be, to cook, to, etc. So the infinitive simply means you're adding to the verb itself. So in the above sentences, the English infinitive expressed with the words to, and again, no person, gender, or number is involved in that. In Hebrew, there are two types of infinitive forms. One is the infinitive which can be used with prepositions and is similar to the English infinitive. So you'll see a preposition for to in there. The other is the infinitive of emphasis, which we'll take a look at a little bit later on. But again, that idea of the imperative form, guard, without the to in front of it. So in Hebrew, the prepositions mem, from, as, in, or to can be attached to the infinitive verb. The preposition Le, to, is most frequently used, again, since that's generally speaking what we have, is to do something. This version of the Hebrew infinitive is closest in meaning to the English infinitive, to. All right, so to guard the house, to remember the Torah, to rule over the land. So it can take an object like any verb form. So in that case, the rules for et apply, as with any other verb form. So et has to precede it if it's a definite. When preceded by the preposition bet or kaf, in or as, like or as, in or on, the infinitive is often difficult to translate into smooth English. These prepositions express the idea of simultaneous action. So when, while, in, as, or during. So you're just going to have to look at context, look at what makes the most sense when you're translating those two, but just remember that it's not just in or on, like or as. It can be when, it can be during, some other prepositions that can be used for it. When the preposition mem, or from, is added to the infinitive, it usually expresses the English word from. So here are some examples from your book. So bishmor et ha-bayit, in guarding the house, but another way to translate it would be when guarding the house. As I said, just have to look at context. Gizkor et ha-Torah, as remembering the Torah, or while remembering the Torah. So as you were remembering the Torah, while remembering the Torah. Bishmoa et hakol, in hearing the voice, or when hearing the voice. Again, same as this, substituting when for in or on. Kimlok al haaretz, literally as or like ruling the land, but while might be a better translation, while ruling the land. So think of it as you were ruling the land, or as you are ruling the land, while ruling over the land, etc. So again, from, just pretty much a straight translation, but you could also see this in this form, Melech al haaretz, since ruling over the land. Okay? Again, looking at context. So here's the crucial thing. Remember, we've talked about this so many times. You want to pick up these patterns. Again, the pattern could vary, but essentially you're looking for a pattern that will help you to recognize that this is an infinitive as opposed to any other form of the verb. And in the case of the infinitive, the pattern is it-o, it-o. So we see that here, it-o, when we add the preposition, it's still it-o, it-o. It's going to be the same. It-o, it-o, again, although that's a kataf, but it's still it-o, essentially. So that's what you're looking for. You're looking for the shava with the cholam vowel. I-O. I-O, I-O. And remember, with a cholam vowel, it may have a vav from time to time. It's still I-O, still the same thing. So that's the pattern that you're looking for. So you can generally recognize group 1 infinitives by their 3-letter root. In the I-O pattern or with a chataf, but it's still kind of the same I-O. The infinitive shema and shalach have an extra patak under the last letter because they end in a guttural. So those forms are frequently used. Well, it says we're excluding forms not used frequently in the Bible. But so that's would be here is what you're looking at. When it has the guttural ending, you'll often see the I-O, and then with the patak under the last letter, and of course that means that this would be pronounced bish lo ach. You bring in that vowel first before you pronounce the guttural. Bishloach. So if the if the verb ends in the hey, then remember that often becomes a tav. All right. So in the case of all of these verbs that end in hey, you'll see I-O again, but there's that pattern. But instead of seeing bana, it's benot. Benot ends in the tav. Okay, so that's the main point there. And finally, then the group 3. Actually, there's group 4, but group 3 is on page 212. Group 3, the infinitives with drop letter roots. So again, we see the Yona letters will drop out, so it becomes a 2-letter root. And the infinitive form can be recognized as segolets for the most part. Okay, so and even the dual patak is often considered a segolet. It's the 2 segols is what segolet means. But that's your pattern here that you're looking for. So if it's not I-O, okay, then chances are what you've got is, but you see this pattern of the segolets. Segolets, see, look at all the segolets here. Segolets, that's your pattern. And occasionally pataks, but segolets primarily. That's your pattern to say, okay, that's an infinitive, but I'm missing a letter here somewhere. So you want to be aware of that. Okay. So go over these lists. Make sure you spend some time with them, but that is the pattern here that you're looking for. So everything else in all the other 2 groups, it's I-O as the pattern, and here it's or ah. And what would a Hebrew study be without unusual or ones that break the pattern? But it really isn't. So these are unusual infinitives. And so just recognize them. Achal, amar, eat or say. But what you're going to recognize here, you still have that I-O. Okay, or you're going to have the segolet, in many cases. But what you'll notice here is because you've got the gutturals just change everything. That it is disappeared from here. Right? So these are you're just going to have to work with these, but you can still kind of see the pattern even in these. So I-O, even though it's a chataf, you still kind of see the pattern on most of them. Okay. So a note that they have, again, this is on page 212. The infinitive lemor has a special role in biblical Hebrew. Since the Bible has very little punctuation, lemor is used to introduce a direct quotation. So to say. It's usually translated as saying. but can also be replaced just with quotation marks. So, Vayomer Moshe el Bnei Yisrael lemor. Moses said to the children of Israel, saying, and she called his name Joseph, saying, lemor, saying. Or when you're translating it, you might not even have the word saying here. You might just have quote marks with what follows. And she called his name Joseph, again, depending on and looking at the context. I think we'll see examples of that. So on page 213, talking about the pronoun ending, the same possessive pronoun endings that are used with other nouns, singular nouns, can also be attached to the infinitive. When these endings are added, there are often vowel changes in the infinitive, so try not to get too flustered with vowel changes. They happen. Generally, infinitives preceded by the lamed do not take possessive endings. So, in your walking on the way, when you were, are, will be walking on the way. So just look this over again, slightly different ways of seeing it, of translating it. So, as the book talked about earlier on, this is on page 213, here's some information about another way to translate the infinitive in the infinitive form of emphasis. So again, no person, gender, number, or tense needed in this form. But unlike the other infinitive form, the infinitive of emphasis does not take prepositions or possessive endings. It's used together with other forms of the same verb root to show emphasis. So there are other uses for the infinitive emphasis which aren't going to be covered in this book. And you can get the verb chart spellings for all of the verbs in their form of infinitive on 374, 375. But so here's the example. Im, excuse me, shamoa tishmeu. So if you will really hear. So you have that shamoa tishmeu. So you have kind of the dual verbs. And if you have the two verbs together, yada, teda, so you see two verbs together, all it means is you're emphasizing that verb. So really know, not just know, but really know, not just hear, but really hear. Again, amar or amor here to said, not just said, but really said or surely said to your son, and I have surely seen your people. So those are the clue here, the pattern you're looking for is if you see two verbs together, and that's not going to make sense, you try and translate it as you will know you will know. So if you literally translated it, in a way, you can make it work. So know that you will know the face of your brother. Okay, know that you will know. Hear that you will hear. So if you really hear, say that you would say. Right? And this, so your second word, notice also your second word kind of gives you the tense of the emphasized verb. So just we'll work with that on the exercises. You'll practice and practice and practice until it becomes second nature. promise. As promised, here's the irregular verb, to be able. This is on page 214, yachal. It doesn't have a participle or imperative form. It's kind of like to be or the to be verb. Be able. The verb pattern is irregular in the perfect and imperfect tenses. You'll need to be able to recognize it. The second and third person feminine plural forms do not occur in the Bible, do not appear below. So they're just giving you examples that you will probably run into. So in the perfect and in the imperfect, you have the forms here. Okay. Yachalti. And uchal. Tuchal. Tuchli. Just practice these, go over them in the vocabulary, and if you need to, put them on flashcards. I think this is up on Quizlet. If not, I'll try and remember to add that practice on Quizlet for you. Okay? So practice, practice, practice. So that's essentially it. Here's the good news, that you've now learned every form in the pattern of regular pa'al verbs. There are 6 other patterns, and those will be in the rest of the book is what we'll be covering, are those 6 other patterns primarily. But, as they say, the patterns are going to be pretty much the same. So from here on out, smooth sailing, as the saying goes. So you'll see on subsequent pages in 214 a series of charts reviewing the verbs that we've learned, and each showing a particular example. So just go over your book, look at that. Let's just quickly take a look here. So the regular verb, remember your patterns. The patak, the kamats, that begins the perfect tense of your verbs. And then the prefix, and then you have your suffixes. Again, if it's in the past, if it's perfect tense in the past tense, it'll have a suffix having to do with the end, the past, it's before. Okay, if it's coming up in the future, you'll have a prefix. Okay, that's the future tense. And remember your pattern of your prefixes. So I, you. Okay, he, she. So these are your patterns. Those you should have down perfectly right now. Participle, again, anything. It's more the present tense. So it's going to have something different in the midst of the verb, in the present moment, right now, in the midst of what we're doing. And that's going to be your O vowel. In the passive, it's the oo vowel. Okay, those are your patterns. The command form, oo, na. Okay, just remember your patterns. The infinitive forms. Okay. We have those here. Emphasis kind of goes. It's kind of the same as the in some ways as the command form. It also has relationships to passive, but more the command form. Emphasis, I would relate more to the command form. So you pick up your oo, but it moves to the center, to within the verb itself. Okay. Same as shemor, but here you have the vav added into it. Okay, but it could be without it. So you see your command form, your emphasis form, pretty similar. Ending in hey, you have some different things. So Again, these are the patterns you want to look for. Patterns for the irregular verb, natan. Patterns for verbs that begin with the yeled, the yod, rather. So look these over, become familiar with them. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That's chapter 20, the infinitive and verb review. And as your book said, this is, this is, once you get these down, it should be pretty smooth sailing from here on out. So keep working on practicing. Use Quizlet for your flashcards. Go over them and over them. We'll have lots of opportunities in the exercises to come to practice these. Don't neglect past exercises. Keep your vocab fresh at all times, and keep reviewing the grammar rules from the past as well. But this is essentially, and I don't. We still have 10 chapters to go, but essentially, you've got right now most everything that you need for the majority of what you would be seeing or reading or looking at in Torah, with the exception of vocabulary. So you're still, I think we'll have, 150 words, maybe 300 words altogether by the time we're done. And that's a good start. I think somewhere we read 800 words is really where you need to end up. So we're getting there. And after this book, someone asked me this at one point. What happens next? Is there a second Hebrew primer? There really is not, that I'm aware of. I've seen a few textbooks that move into a kind of a second phase, but generally speaking, that's it. From here on out, what you want to do is to really get a vocab book, and we talked about some of them that are out there and available, and just begin practicing your roots, your vocab, and putting that together. Okay, so, but this is it for the review. Again, we still have exercises to do for chapter 20, and we'll continue working on that. So be sure and join us next time for Yeshiva B'nai Noach. I'm Tom Averna. Shalom.